The most scariest scenes from the series The Haunting of Hill House. Number 10. Her Ghosts. Episode 1. Stephen Sees a Ghost. There's a lot of secrets with regards to one of the first terrifying ghostly encounters in the very first episode of the series, and it ends with a heartbreak. Stephen arrives home to his apartment after investigating a paranormal case for his next book. He then finds her sister Nell in his living room. Stephen scolds his sister for letting her twin, drug-addicted brother Luke steal his things. But then Stephen gets a call from his dad mid-scold. His dad, Hugh, called to tell him that his sister Nell returned to the Hill House and unfortunately took her own life there. Wait, so who was he scolding? Stephen and his siblings spent the whole day ignoring Nell's calls and waving her off after her period of isolation. Nell's ghost then appears in Stephen's new apartment at the end of the episode. Stephen learns that his youngest sister has died while she's standing right next to him. Full of dread, he turns to find Nell, who begins shivering and moaning. Nell's face and eyes turn gray, and her mouth opens to let out a scream that has poor Stephen collapsing to the floor. Number 9. Off to Bed. Episode 4. The Twin Thing. Luke has always been brushed off with his claims of ghostly encounters. Well, we can't blame them. The others always assumed that Nell was lying too. While Luke was hiding in bed one night, Luke heard knocking down the halls of Hill House. Being the curious guy he was, he looks outside of his door, only to see the ghost of William Hill. He then torments Luke and follows him under the bed as Luke tries to find a safe space. That's a lot of damage to a child. Number 8. Face of Death. Episode 2. Open Casket. One day as a child at Hill House, Shirley finds a box of cute little kittens. In an attempt to save them, she takes them in. Unfortunately, the kittens died in her bedroom, and they held a funeral for them. At least they died with respect. The terrifying scene when she reopens the box to find stiff, lifeless kittens is heartbreaking for us cat lovers. And Shirley's odd relationship with death started from an early age. Oddly enough, she grew up to work at a funeral home where she handles dead bodies, even her sisters, as if it was nothing. Number 7. Great Escape. Episode 3. Touch. The third episode really amps up the horror. This was when young Luke takes a trip in the dumbwaiter in the dead of the dark, unexplored basement of the mansion that wasn't even in the blueprint after he convinces Shirley to activate the dumbwaiter with him inside. This waiter leads to a hidden cellar, and later we hear rustling sounds. A torso then crawls from the shadows in the dusty basement. It then eyes Luke and moves at an unholy speed towards the poor guy. Luke was slowly approached and attacked by a zombie, his flashlight flickering on and off as he screamed helplessly. This is nightmare fuel right here. Number 6. Disappearing Nell. Episode 6. Two Storms. The entire episode consists of plenty of creepiness, including statues that turn their heads between shots if you observe closely, and ghosts popping up in unexpected places, including in a previously empty bed. This episode in particular is loaded more with an unspeakable tension than any terrifying jump scares, but it does have one of the show's more haunting visuals. When Olivia searches the house for Nell, who's missing during a thunderstorm, she is oblivious to the ghostly image of an elderly woman in one of the rooms. Theo and Nell stand nearby, holding hands, until the camera moves back and we see that Theo is suddenly standing alone and Nell has completely vanished into thin air. Is that foreshadowing? Number 5. Come Here, Son. Episode 7. Eulogy. In this episode, Hugh and Theo see a ghost crawling across the floor of Shirley's home office and right towards them. Yikes! But the more sudden, frightful scenes come earlier when Luke is at his sister's graveside. Despairing with the loss of his sister, we see Luke bow down by the open grave of his twin. He felt what she felt, like what most twins experience, often bonding without even being around each other. In this touching moment, his dead mother kills the mood by reaching her hand from the grave to pull him in. Number 4. Snip Snip. Episode 9. Screaming Meanies. As the house continues to consume Olivia's mind, she seeks refuge in the reading room, which was actually her interpretation of the house's red room. But instead, she finds herself in a rather grim place, the morgue. Olivia soon faces her own nightmare as she gets a vision of her own daughters as adults and dead on slabs in a morgue. But it doesn't stop there. It only gets worse when Nell sits up and grabs a pair of Nell's scissors to slowly snip apart the wire holding her jaw shut. Nell's future dead body clipping open the bindings on her own mouth and begging her mother to save her. Olivia is truly losing her mind. And while her fears for Nell and Luke do become true later on, a lot of their trauma is actually a result of her actions while she's trying to protect them. Number 3. You Are Your Own Enemy. Episode 5. The Bent Neck Lady. Let's go back to Nell's first days in Hill House as a child. We all know she had something ominous following her. The figure of the so-called Bent Neck Lady haunts Nell for her entire life. Her long hair and horrific face painted with despair caused Nell to scream time and time again. Nell learns to manage her sleep, of course, with the help of a technician whom she later married. She is then able to at least temporarily escape the Bent Neck Lady's gaze. It was pretty obvious that the name Bent Neck came from the woman having hung herself, but it was a real shocker for it to have been Nell all along, cycling through her own traumas at the moment of her death. The scariest part comes earlier, when the ghost corners her in a hotel hallway and drops suddenly from the ceiling. Nell haunts Theo, Luke, herself as an adult, and then finally her as a child. What we can all figure is that Nell's ghost does everything that she can to scare off her family and leave the house. I wish they could have taken the hint. Number 2. Pull Over or Else. Episode 8. Witness Marks. This was the scene that a lot of fans disliked because of the huge scare. Shirley and Theo are driving quietly back to the mansion to find Luke from the grave. They then fall into another argument. After, they're suddenly and loudly interrupted by their dead sister Nell, who pops up between them from the back seat and screams in their faces, causing the car to skid off the road and Theo jumping out, running from this terrifying vision. Still being the caring sister she is, despite her extreme ghastly efforts to scare them away from the house, we can say that Nell wasn't happy with her older sisters fighting while trying to rescue her twin brother. Her appearance succeeds in allowing her sisters to forgive each other. Number 1. Nightmares. Episode 10. Silence Lay Steadily. And to top it off, the finale. Each character has to face their own worst nightmare after they become trapped in the mansion's haunted red room. Theo finds herself suffocating under not one or two, but a whole host of gray rotting arms. It's only thanks to Nell that Theo makes it out of there. Just like with the rest of her siblings, trapped in her own mind, Theo can't seem to move past the guilt of never truly connecting with anyone. For Shirley, she dreams that she is in the funeral home, only it's not Nell's body in the casket but her own. Suddenly, dead Shirley sits up and starts to claw at her face, pulling her eyes out and ripping at the skin to reveal blackened, rotting flesh underneath. For Luke, he dreams about being with Joey again after she ran off with the money he got from Steve. She then torments him about getting high before. Finally, Steven sits with Leigh, his pregnant wife, and she starts to talk to him using stronger and stronger words, accusing him of being a plastic parasite. Then she lifts up her dress to reveal her pregnant belly, which begins to bulge and crack. That's it for the scariest scenes from the series The Haunting of Hill House. Which scene freaked you out the most? Tell us in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Starface Productions, and hit the bell icon for more updates. Hit the thumbs up button too. Bye!